This is the Breakfast Vibe Show. My name is Diana Wamboy and it is 25 minutes past 8 a.m. A very good morning to talk about open data with my guest in studio, Mr. Lucas Fondo from Lego. How are you this morning?
I'm fine. And what about you?
I'm very great. So the last time you were here, we were at a program on We Talk on Saturday, and this is just a continuation of what we had started then. But today we are going to talk about open data.
Yes.
So kindly, would you tell us what open data is?
Okay, open data is just normal data, but it becomes open on the way you present it. The way it is presented to stakeholders or members of the public. That's what differentiates it from the normal data. We call it open because it's provided in different formats that the user or the stakeholder can be able to access it, download it in a format that they can use it the way they want to get the results they are looking for. That's why it's called open data. For example, you have a budget document, it's data, or the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan, has got a lot of data presented in it. But the way you present it makes it open or closed. For example, you go to a website, to a county website, and you download the CIDP in PDF format. A PDF format is a closed document. You cannot use that document, that data the way you want. But if you have the option of downloading it either on Word, either on is it CSV or different format for your use, then it becomes open to members of the public. Because open data has got its principles. It must be reusable, for example.
It must be reusable.
Yes, reusable to an extent that someone can download it and reuse it the way they want.
But when you say, for example, if a document is on the website,
yes,
and it's in PDF form, then that means no one can alter it.
Yes.
But don't you think that is more of a safety precaution? It's more of a precaution, because what if I download it, alter it, and then post it somewhere else, and that will kind of bring in a conflicting message to anyone?
No, there are issues of the data integrity, and people normally the close kind of people, like for example the governments and other agencies normally provide data with that excuse that I'm protecting it from use or from being altered by different people. But for example, someone like me, a governance practitioner, and I want to use that data for different purposes. For example, if I want to pick a certain just one department in that data, I've just given, for example, the CIDP, and I want to use one. I want to pick a department and try to dissect it for people to be able to understand what the kind of data it is. Then I need to be given that flexibility of how to get it and use it the way I want. For another principle is that it must be reusable. If you provide that data in a PDF format, as much as you provided that data, but it's not reusable. I cannot tweak it the way I want for people to be able to understand and use it for my own benefits. So that's why we are saying there are benefits associated with with data in general. Like last week we were talking about the benefits of data, and there are benefits of open data because I can download it, I can reuse it, I can mold it the way I want and present it the way I want. Yes, and that's promote transparency and accountability. It also brings in the issue of citizen or public participation. It actually motivates citizen to participate because I can go to a website, get data, and actually analyze it and present it in my own style, understandable style to my customers. But if the data is just closed, like for example PDF in a certain format, then it's limited. I cannot be able to use it the way I want.
Okay. What are some of the other principles? The first one you said it's reusable. It must be reusable.
It must be accessible. It must be reusable, and it needs to be presented in different formats as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, help me understand. If I am the government and we are putting out data out there, you've said it has to be reusable. Help me or help us understand what reusable means. You've said it will enable you read it, analyze it, and use it the way you want.
Yes.
Does that mean? What does that mean exactly?
It means the data is flexible. I can use it the way I want. Sometimes I want to present it in form of infographics.
Okay.
For example. So that means I can access that data and redesign it into infographics based on the needs of my customers. Yes, that's one example of data that is being reusable.
Also, you're not altering with anything that
No.
is in the document. You're just making it favorable and
Yes.
understandable to your client.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is open data embraced in the government, in the county governments, for example, in Kenya?
The concept of open data is okay. It's been there for quite some time. It began in the US, and it's one way of democratizing governments. And different governments are embracing. Different nations around the world are embracing open data to enable citizens to be able to understand what the government is doing in terms of development. And there is a strategy that these governments are using. It started during the Obama time government as a tool for democratizing governments, for opening up governments, and they came up with something called Open Government Partnership, whereby different stakeholders come together and get the data from from the governments and open it up to their stakeholders so that their stakeholders can be able to interact and understand what the government is planning to do, the services the government is planning to offer, and also enable them to do some inputs in actually enhancing what the government is doing. So Kenya is a signatory to the Open Government Partnership, and in the Kibaki government, it was actually domiciled in the office of the Prime Minister when it started, and then the Uhuru government, it was domiciled in the office of the deputy government. And currently, as we are speaking, there are sub-national governments that are embracing open government and open data. And for example, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, Makueni, and Nairobi. So in the Open Government Partnership, It's a requirement that civil society and government and other stakeholders come together to generate data and and present data in a format that is accessible and reusable to their customers. And they open up different departments in the county, in the government. For example, sometimes the Department of Finance has been targeted, because that is where a lot of data is domiciled in governments. The Department of Finance and Planning. So the sub-county governments or the governments are required to choose what to open to members of the public. And or like, for example, contracting, some governments choose to open contracting processes so as to make it more to have members of the public participate, and also make it more open. Procurement is one area where a lot of resources are being lost in procurement. So if by opening the data of for example, the companies that have been awarded contracts and such like issues, enables members of the public to understand, kumbe so and so is the owner of the company, for example, that is implementing a borehole in our area. So and so a certain politician, for example, was awarded this at the expense of this and this and this. So by members of the public having this data and interrogating it, then you democratize processes and you open up development. And then another area is the finance area and health. Some governments open up health data and enable members of the public to participate in making decisions and voicing up their concerns through by interrogating the data that is provided or that is opened up. Yes.
With all the benefits that open data comes with, why is it that only very few county governments have tried to incorporate the open data? Well, a large percentage does not have open data policy.
Your guess is as good as mine, because any process of democratization comes with a lot of push and pull, because in the government, as I said in the other program, is that the government is a very big elephant, and it houses everything and everyone, and people of different preferences and different interests are in there. So if you want, for example, Kilifi County to open up, you are definitely being faced with a lot of push and pull, because there are people with interests in there that don't, for example, just the contracting data. If you want to open it up, it means you are opening up to members of the public so that they know what happens behind the curtains. And I would want to work behind the curtains so that I get my kickbacks and such like things. I give you this contract, you give me this amount of kickback. But if I open it up, then I will be opening up to scrutiny, to public scrutiny. And sometimes with a corrupt regime, I'm not saying that Kilifi regime is, I was using it as an example, but with our corrupt government regimes, sometimes it's not favorable to the people working in these governments to open up everything. Just take, for example, the issue of budget. Some governments don't want to open up budgets just because they don't want you to know what is allocated for a certain project, so that you can be able to follow up and see and open it up to public scrutiny, definitely. Because any third eye means I can't get what I want. Yes.
Well, with the few counties that have actually used open data, would there be any analysis to show that they are actually better than the others in terms of development? Because now there's a third eye that is watching as compared to the others. So we expect that they will act up and be better than the rest. Is that the case?
Yeah, to an extent, yes. But as you know, governance issues, governance program move very slowly. But there are elements of benefits, a lot of benefits in terms of development. Go to a county like Makueni, you see the way people are participating in governance. Well, it's very different from, for example, Mombasa County and other very many other counties. Just because they have embraced the open data or the open government partnerships model, then members of the public have got a very big power to participate, to allocate resources, and to take part in development. I remember going to Makueni and visiting some projects where you have these project development committees that are so powerful that they can ask the county not to pay a contractor because he had not done his work according to the bill of quantities of that project. And you go to another project, you see this community committee, that community project committee that is so powerful that they are managing the day-to-day affairs of, like for example, a market that was built by the county government, contrary to other county governments, where a building is just you wake up one day and find out that they are constructing a health facility without your knowledge. There is no committee, the community development committee. No one knows the bill of quantity, how much was allocated, or the time frame for its completion. So it ends up becoming a white elephant project, and people don't know where to go, where to start. But if the communities, for example, participate from the word go, from the design of the project, from coming up with the project design of the project, and they are actually empowered and given a say in managing how this contractor is developing their project, because this is their project, this is their taxes, and they need to actually keep watch of how this project is being developed, because as much as it's their taxes, it's them who needed the project, and the county is only facilitating the development of that project. So it's your project. You have to keep a watch on it and ensure that it's constructed to what you agreed in the bill of quantity and such like issues. But in a closed society, you find out that the public does not participate to that extent, and that becomes an issue in terms of actually achieving that service of that that development project.
Okay. Yeah. Now, in such governments who that have open data, do you think that the public is fully participating in it, or it's just very few people who maybe know that open data exists and maybe we can have a say in this? Do you think people, for example, in the counties that you have mentioned, really know that there's open data, we can get data from this and this place and we can use it, we can actually participate? Do you think, or can you give us maybe an analysis or a percentage of how many, to what ratio?
You know, the issue of threshold always comes to play when we talk about public participation. Sometimes here in Mombasa, we are grappling with what is a meaningful public participation. What is the threshold for public participation that we can say the members of the public really participated? But for example, you go to a place like Makueni, and first of all, public participation does not exist in a vacuum. It has supporters or pillars to support it function well. Like for example, civic education. is also a very important pillar for open government or open data to be able to function to its maximum. So you go to Makueni, you find out that they have a very vibrant civic education strategy that they are implementing, and members of the public actually understand. You remember one time when the governor was the former governor Kivutha Kibwana, the members of county assembly wanted to dissolve, went for dissolution of the county government because the Kibwana was not giving them whatever they wanted. But Kibwana was so clever to have civic educated the members of the public, and he said, bring it on. Let's go to elections today and see who will be elected, because he had that confidence that he had won from members of the public, that even if elections are called today, I will be able to get to win the support of members of the public, because they understand what it means to participate in government, and I've given them the powers to participate in the government, contrary to the MCAs. So if you want open data to actually thrive, you need to support it with such like structures, like, for example, civic educate people so that they understand their roles. So I would say not 100%, even in the counties that are embracing open data and open government, but to a larger extent, yes, people a larger percentage of people are participating than the counties that don't have don't embrace open government partnerships and open data.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we come back, we'll still discuss about these counties that do not have any form of open data.
Yeah.
How are the citizens of those, or the residents of the counties, getting information, and what can they do to actually, help the government or ask the government, hey, what is happening? Why are we not getting the data we need? Why are you not answerable to us? And we are the ones who put you in those positions. We're going to talk about that when we come back after the break. It is 13 minutes to 9 a.m. and we're going for a very short break. This is the Blue Radio. We're bringing you the vibe. This is the Breakfast Vibe Show. My name is Diana Wamboi, and we are with Mr. Lucas Fondo from Lengo, where we're talking about open data and governance and development. Don't go away.
I'm gonna be okay, mama.
Single again,
Mama, you don't.
playing right here at Blue Radio.
Ooh,
And of course, we're bringing you the vibe.
man.
This is the Breakfast Vibe Show. My name is Diana Wamboi, and I am hanging out with Lucas Fondo from Lengo.
I'm wondering if you're still single.
Tupatane nyuma ya tafadhali.
Yes.
7 minutes to 9 a.m. But before 9 a.m., before the top of the hour, we wanted to talk about the counties or the governments that do not have this open data. What are their citizens missing? And what can they do? Who can they talk to? To what limit can they interfere with the situation?
They are missing motivation for their communities. They are members of the public to participate. And public participation is one of the biggest ingredients of democratization that is envisaged in our constitution. So if you don't have members of the public that don't participate, you will not know what they need or what kind of programs and services to be delivered. It's like you will be promoting blind services and development to members of the public in a dictatorial way, unlike in a democratic way that you provide services where they are needed. You will also be wasting a lot of resources because you are providing services blindly, and people might not be needing those services. So that means you end up with a lot of wastages of resources.
And I think that when you say a democratic world, I think we also need to explain to the public what a democracy is, because I think what we think democracy is the day of the ballot. That is when we practice democracy. and that's it. So
Democracy means majority have their is it their say or their way? Their say, but minority have their way.
yeah.
Or majority have their way, or minority have their
their
say, whichever. Yeah. So it means the something that is a need to many people is the one that you go for, because by you providing such a service that is needed by many people, you are reaching many. You are actually solving the problem to a lot of people, unlike you coming up with your own things that you think you are solving problems for people. Kumbe, you are solving problems for yourselves. So democracy does not end at the ballot. Democracy means you have a say in each and every decision the government is making on your behalf. Yes, moving forward. So you wake up very early in the morning, you go to elect a leader. You wake up very early every day to monitor how this leader is performing their duties, because it's like the house girl in the house guy or house boy in your house, that you wake up every day, you give instructions and you monitor how they perform their duties. It is the same thing as members of the government officers vis-a-vis us. So our democracy does not end at the ballot. In fact, you look at the Constitution, it says public participation in every aspect of development.
Yeah, but that then brings the issue of the threshold.
Yes.
How many people would we say are enough to actually say that there was a public
participation? So that's a myth that we need to demystify as members of the public and as governments. We need to demystify what a meaningful and the threshold of public participation is. For us to say, for example, Mombasa has got 1.5 million people. How do we say, what threshold do we say that of participation do we say that this has been a success, this has been meaningful? Like, for example, now the county government of Mombasa has called for members of the public to participate in formulation of county integrated development plan as on 13th this month. What we as civil society are saying is that take that public participation to every ward and expand, if possible, every village, so that members of the public, even if you have 100 or 200 people participating from every village, for all the villages or for all the 30 wards in Mombasa, at least you have a larger population that participated. Unlike taking one public participation forum at Tononoka and say members of the public are invited to come to participate in the formulation of the CIDP, you will end up getting 50 people and you say that people participated, while in the real sense members of the public in Mombasa were not given the opportunity to really participate because you only called 50 people to participate. Yes.
And early on, you still haven't answered the question of what are we supposed to do as the citizens whereby our government has not given us access to open data. You
need to demand.
But what are the channels?
You need to demand.
Because actually someone is asking here,
yes,
is a case like the maandamano that has been going on,
yes,
is that a way of asking for, because when you look at it, there were two key issues in the maandamano. There was the high cost of living and the opening of IEBC servers.
Yes.
So is that a form of open data? That is what they are asking.
That data in the IEBC server needs to be open to members of the public. Whether it's open now or not, as the people in Mandamano are saying, it's another thing altogether. But it needs to be open where so that members of the public can be able to interact with it. They can download and do their tallies, just as it used to be when elections were happening, that you could go to that portal and download and do your tallies. So it needs to be open to that extent that people can be able to interact with that data.
So opening it for a short period of time is not as effective.
Yeah, you need to make it open because that's public data. You need to make it open forever for everyone to serve as a reference point. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So what we need to do as members of the public, we need to demand, and that demanding does not mean maandamano. You know, there are channels of demanding. One is do a memorandum and a request for that information. You can do a letter. You can go visit these offices and demand for this information. Say that you want this information to use it for ABCD. The members of the government officials can provide it through the internet, in websites, in reusable formats that people can be able to get it. But you can do petitions. You can actually petition a government agency to give you information, but you can also go to court to demand that this county government agency or this government agency is not giving me information that I need to use for my ABCD. Then mandamano can be a last resort, because mandamano is one of the way of demanding, and members of the public know that civil society sometimes, and political parties and politicians stage mandamano, but that mandamano needs to come as a last resort. Why am I saying mandamano needs to come as a last resort? It's because the constitution is providing us with ways, a lot of ways of actually asking and getting for this information.
Okay.
Yes, that you need to expedite first. If you are not given this information, then you can now resort to going for mandamano way.
I think that is an issue that we can talk extensively in our next program
Yes.
about the ways to ask for information. Skuma Dinga playing right here at Blue Radio. We're bringing you the vibe. This is the Breakfast Vibe Show. My name is Dana Wampoi, and it is 9 minutes past 9 a.m. We are still with Mr. Lucas Fondo from Lengo, and we are just winding up on the open data governance and development, where we're going to talk about what are some of the limitations of open data, Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, open data as a sector has its own limitations. Not everything is rosy as we are speaking. And you know, for open data to serve its purpose, you need to be available, first of all. And we are being faced by an availability of data. As we are speaking, you visit different government websites, and you don't get enough data. Like the way I said last week is that sometimes we just think that the government has everything, only to find out that they also lack some form of data, which is crucial for their planning. And that's why we normally have the gaps that we see in development, in service delivery. So if the data that you want to open up is not there, that's a limitation, and that's a challenge in its own. An availability of those portals, the portals that people can interact with and download the data into the formats they wish. If those portals are not there, that's also a limitation and a challenge. For open data. The slow implementation of open data charter. There is an open data charter that the government has been has actually developed, and its slow implementation actually impedes the achievements that we would have made if data was open. You know, like for example, there is a Kenya Open Data Portal that the government developed, and a lot of data that is being presented there is presented in an open manner, where with all the principles of open data. But they stopped funding it. The government stopped funding it. So the information that you find there are information, old information. You don't have, they are not actually updating that portal for members of the public to be able to get that data. That is one portal that, a major portal that was developed by the government during the Kibaki government time. And as we are speaking now, it's not very active because they stopped after the donor that was funding that project. Actually, they stopped uploading data in there. And the government generates data on a day-to-day basis. So if you stop such a program, then you don't expect members of the public and stakeholders to get information as it's supposed to be. Another limitation is actually weak collaboration between governments and other stakeholders, because open data, open government needs a lot of collaboration. Like, for example, now the donor that was funding the open data, Kenya Open Data Portal, ended the funding, and the portal ceased to function properly because no data is being uploaded. But if you bring in stakeholders like the civil society, like the private sector, they can be able to facilitate the upload of data in these portals so that their stakeholders, their members of staff can be able to access data for their own consumption. Like, for example, the private sector is always data driven. And if you have such a program and in partnership with a private sector organization that can be able to finance upload of data and production of data and upload of data, then it becomes an asset. But most of the time you find the government is operating in isolation, in silos, in closed doors. They don't open up for members of the civil society who sometimes have resources to these functions. The members of private sector who are actually driven by the profits they make from our communities. They can be able to give back to the government or the public so that some of these challenges we can be able to navigate through them. Okay. But if we don't have such policies and an open door policy by the government, then you find out we are limited in terms of achieving the open data and open government partnership.
Now that our open data is that important for the counties and for the governments that do not have it, or a policy that says we need to have open data, what, as you as an organization, what is your role? How will you actually help the citizens or collaborate with the citizens to make sure that most of these counties, around 43 counties that do not have the open data policy, how are you going to actually tell them that this is important and you need to put it in, to consider it in your government?
I think we're implementing an open data program in Mombasa County, and we are trying to work with Mombasa County. We actually have an MOU with Mombasa County to work around issues of access and generation of open data. And currently we have a portal that we are developing. We are calling it Zua.ke portal, where you get all the budget and planning documents accessible to members of the public. They can be able to download, they can be able to interact with them. And we always have lessons or classes or forums where we actually sensitize members of the public about open data, as well as members of the county government about open data. But what on a greater aspect, what needs to be done is that the national government needs to make it mandatory for all the county governments to open up data. I know the executive, for example, executive order number, I think order number 2 of 2018 on the former regime requested all county governments to open up their contracting and the service providers they work with, the people they contract, and say who are these people, who are these companies, and such like. So such like pronouncements by the government need to be more. An executive order by the president needs to be obeyed, that counties need to open up, need to say who are these people they work with. And that's one aspect of opening up a certain area of the government for public scrutiny and such like. So the national government has got a big role to play in ensuring that the 43 county governments open up. As an organization, we are trying to speak with these governments. Like, for example, the governments at the Coast region, we want to have governments adopt the open government partnership, just like Makueni, Nandi, and the draft that is Nairobi. And we want to make more and more governments become open, so that members of the public can be able to input and enrich development programs and service delivery.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Mr. Lucas, for being with us. It is 18 minutes past 9 a.m. and someone is asking, kindly tell us what Lengo means. We forgot to say that as we started the interview.
Oh, sorry. Lengo is an abbreviation of Local Empowerment for Good Governance. It's an NGO that was established in the year 2012, and it works with within the Coast region to do with thematic focus on governance, human rights, and environmental justice.
Okay.
Yes.
So that is what Lengo is. Where do we find you in your social media handles? On Twitter at Lengo_official, on Facebook Lengo Local Empowerment, and also Lengo Local Empowerment on Instagram. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So thank you so much. We will still meet. This is just the second episode of a very long discussion about data, the importance of data in governance and development. Thank you so much for gracing our studios today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It is 19 minutes past 9 a.m. We are going for a very short break where in the next hour, we're going to have the Senator of Mombasa County, Mohamed Faki, with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about Mombasa County. Not a little bit, extensively about Mombasa County. Thank you so much.
You're listening to Blue Radio, bringing the vibe.